he said, I would like to call an ambulance. And I was so scared to like make a fuss. I
Mhm.
was embarrassed. And so I was like, no. He said, I think you might have a tumor or something. And then about 2 months later, I got really sick. I had these wounds on my abdomen. I couldn't even like swallow my own saliva. My mom was very worried and she said, let's call an ambulance. And I said, okay. They're trying to diagnose me. They're trying to get fluids in me. I'm battling being septic. They're telling my family they don't know if I'll make it, honestly.
What's up, ladies? Welcome to the Health Class She Deserves, the show where we ditch outdated women's health myths and talk real bodies, real cycles, and real stories. I'm your host, Autumn Payon, and today we have another installment of Her Story, a series where I speak to people like you about your experience with chronic pain, chronic illness, medical gaslighting, mental health, and more. Because the main purpose of this platform is to empower women, and I can't think of a better way to do that than to amplify your voices. If you're interested in sharing your story, check out the link in the show notes to fill out the form and we'll reach out if it's a good fit. Today, we are welcoming Jenna Bostick to class. Jenna is 40, single, and childless, save her 2 dogs, Gracie and Goldie, that she considers children. She has worked in real estate for 13 years and loves being a career woman. When she's not at work, she can be found sewing, crafting, or painting. Jenna is healing from the traumatic past 20 years with her health after being misdiagnosed several times with PCOS when things were actually much more serious. She's now on a mission to help women feel encouraged and confident about their health questions and concerns and teach them what she's learned through her personal health journey. Jenna, welcome to class.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to have you here. So we will just jump right into it. You struggled for years. And like I said in the intro, you were misdiagnosed with PCOS before you finally got a much more serious diagnosis. Can you talk about what that diagnosis was? And can you talk about some of the earliest symptoms that you presented with?
So for me, it started when I was about 18 years old. I'm 40 now, and this is before Google. So I really just had Cosmopolitan magazine and like maybe Oprah. And that was about it for information. I had a few symptoms like I started to get a couple of hairs on my chin. I had real bad cystic acne in this area, and that was really it. I did have a lot of weight gain in my midsection, and I was a very active like athlete, and I could not figure out how to get it off. Like I was doing everything, and that was back when Slim Fast was around. And so we were trying everything. I went to doctors, a few different doctors, and I never got any kind of good information. Everything was cut carbs, try to go for a run, whatever. But I was like 17, 18 at the time. I'm very active, but also like no structure. I wasn't counting macros and all of that. I mean, you're senior in high school, like, you're busy. So I ended up going to a dermatologist at one point. All of my blood work had been right. And I kind of grew up in a house where we just went to the doctor when we were sick and that was it. Um, and so I didn't know if this was like all normal and maybe like it was just me or I don't know. And so I did end up going to a dermatologist and I had some brown on my neck and my armpits and like the insides of my elbows. And I didn't know what was going on. And he told me that I needed to bathe more properly. And I'm a little uh, obsessed with being clean. And so that really like has stuck with me obviously for a long time. So I learned later on that it was insulin resistance. It's not dirt. It's definitely
Oh
a
my gosh.
huge symptom.
Yeah.
So that stuck with me forever. I remember I was like 18 years old and it was around prom time. everyone had to get, Cosmopolitan magazine, anything so you could see like the trendiest prom dresses to pick out. And I read an article about PCOS and I was like, I'd never heard of that. That had all these symptoms. And so I took it to my doctor and she's like, you probably have that. Um, no internal ultrasound, no, nothing further other than just don't eat a lot of sugar. Don't eat dairy. It's always something new to try. So I've battled with that for literally 20 years. Different doctors saying different things. Sometimes I didn't have cysts on my ovaries. Sometimes I did. They would just say you could get on birth control or go from there. And there was never really like a solid answer
Right.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really common experience for a lot of women when they're told, like when you said that he just told you to clean more, like cleanse yourself better, it reminded me of an interview I did with Sorsha Nash, who works in like the UTI urinary health space. And a lot of women, when they're getting chronic UTIs, the main advice that they're given is like wipe front to back and make sure you clean yourself. And it's like, no shit. Like everyone's doing
Yeah.
that. That's not
Yeah.
the reason that I'm experiencing this. And so that kind of made me think of that of like just, women's bodies are they're either being like objectified in a sexualized way or they're being considered like dirty and gross. And it's
Yeah.
just like those two ends of the spectrum.
I
And
totally agree.
yeah, like it just and that informs what the advice that the doctors are giving. And it's like, if I was a man and I was coming to you with these symptoms and I said, I actually shower every day and have scrubbed at these and nothing's changing, now what
Hmm.
do I do? They probably would be like, oh, okay. And like, run some blood tests or
Hmm.
something. So you go to your doctor and you're like, with a magazine article, which is also another really relatable thing of like, I mean, obviously now in the age of the internet, it's like I saw it on TikTok, but I would not have, had the confidence or the knowledge to go and seek out an endometriosis specialist if not for creators online. And it's so sad that we have to rely on the internet, on the magazine articles, whatever, when we can't rely on our doctors. And I think that's another relatable experience of you being like, hey, I have a lot of these symptoms. Do you think it could be PCOS? And your doctor's just kind of like, okay, sure. Cause it's like, they don't know. They don't want to say they don't know, which I think that you should. If you don't know, I think you should say, I don't understand what's happening. I have to refer you somewhere else. Like I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but yeah, they don't know. And so you come with a potential solution, which is crazy for the patient to have to diagnose themselves. And the doctor's like, okay, yeah, let's go with that. So they didn't do an internal ultrasound, you said. Did they
Not,
test your hormone levels?
no, no, never. I mean, I had like the standard CBC, like all of that. And things over the years, things were mostly normal. Sometimes my iron would be low or high, and they'd be like, oh, your period. And for the most part, my period was always very consistent. That's one thing that shocked my gynecologist oncologist last year. I was always like the girl bragging because I never had cramps when I had my period. And I've probably cramped like 5 times in my life.
Wow.
And I know, and I had like a consistent period almost to the day. Even when I was like more overweight, when I was going to the doctor back then, I wish I would have pushed more for an answer because I was 18 years old. And when I look at an 18-year-old now, I think they're so young. Like, I want to just give them so much information, and like, not, not they're young, I'm looking down at them. Like, young, like, let me tell you what I've learned in the 20 years since being 18 or 22 years. So, I had a lot of doctors that were great. I wish I would have pushed more and had some sort of confidence and, like, someone to help me just say, "We gotta get to the bottom of this. You should not feel like this at all." Like, fatigue, acne, the hairs, migraines. I've had migraines since I was about 10 or 12. I've missed Christmases with family. I've missed birthday parties and my own birthday party one year, trips out of town. I've missed plenty of days, and I'm like, "That literally could have been avoided," you know? I try not to think about that, but it's true, could have been avoided.
Right. That's tough. It's a tough, like, emotional thing to come to terms with also because I think you speak to a larger systemic issue of, like, I was just writing about this for the newsletter and about the whole, like, fallacy of womanhood equaling pain, which is
Mhm.
just so normalized in our culture of, like, beauty is pain. Periods are painful. Like, just being a woman in general is associated with pain. And so when women have pain, doctors are just like, "Yep, that's normal." And it's like, "No, pain is never ever
Yes,
normal." And so I think that's a really important message for young women potentially listening to this because we are not taught as young girls to take up space. We're taught the opposite, right? We're taught don't take up space. We're taught
mhm,
don't be difficult, try to please everybody, make everyone happy. And so when it comes to your own health and you're sitting in a doctor's office and the doctor just kind of wants to move you along because you're being a difficult patient and you're like, I just want an answer. I don't feel like that's a crazy thing to ask for. Isn't that your job? Aren't you
yeah,
getting paid like 10 times more than the average American to do this? It's really disheartening and to now be, like, as an adult and look back on that and be like, "Oh my god, like, if only I knew." I can imagine that emotional component is also very difficult, um, to deal with.
it is.
Yeah.
Especially now that I can't have children, I always wanted children. Then, I approached, like, 38, 39, and it just wasn't happening for me. I'm not married, and that's okay. I'm a happy person, you know, otherwise, but I did want children for so long, and I try not to think about the what ifs and the way things could have gone, and it's really tough. And now I've had a hysterectomy and everything, and I didn't keep my eggs at the time. Like, my gut instinct was just to not keep anything, and I'm still happy with that. So that's good. But it's so hard to think to try to distract myself and say, don't think about that because I am single, I'm still dating, and I'm at that age where there are some men who do want children, and so I run into that a lot. I feel like I talk about it more than I realized I would, and like you said, being put together and people pleasing and being sweet. I'm from the South, are taught that from the beginning. I now know at 40 that that doesn't mean just being like a sweet, go with the flow person. I can stand up for myself and be nice at the same time. My oncologist last year, I cannot believe how good my experience with him was. And I was just like, I wish I met you 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
And one thing he always said to me was he just said it so many times. He would say, "Well, you know your body more than anyone else." It sounds so simple, but no one told me that as a child, as a young adult. So now I say that to my nieces and nephew. I'm like, "Well, you know your body. So if you feel like your head hurts or I trust you're being honest and, that kind of thing." Because I want them to really feel your body and, like, your body and your gut instinct. So go with it.
Yes. That's such an important message, especially in the age of social media and, like, we're all very disconnected from our physical selves. We're very much in our heads a lot these days. And that in itself can just disconnect you from your body. And then when we talk about like the systemic issues that women face in terms of like what we're taught and how we're taught to act and all that, like it just creates this even deeper divide between our mind and our body. And that's so great that you tell, your nieces and nephews and young people in your life to trust their body because you're right. It sounds so simple, but no one says that, especially in the medical space, like these doctors that you're taught to trust. Like you're just taught to blindly trust them. And it's like, well, they're not trusting me to know
Mm,
what's going on. Like I know how I feel on a regular basis. I have an incredible gut instinct and I am connected to my body and they're telling me that I'm crazy. Like that's not a way to foster trust. And so I think that's a really, really important point. I'd love to talk more about how you actually ended up getting a different diagnosis then, because obviously it wasn't like PCOS, like you've mentioned, your oncologist, you had a tumor on your left ovary. Can you talk about how you ended up getting that diagnosis, how you ended up in the hospital?
yes. So the past couple of years, had been gaining weight. And I've always done this where I lose weight, I gain weight, I lose weight, I gain weight. And my midsection is just always bigger than my legs. I was gaining weight and I was like, oh, I need to work out. I need to work out. Well, I had a very stressful job, things like that. A lot of life going on. And then COVID happened, and COVID really threw a wrench into my routine and my structure as it did everyone else's. I started doing home workouts, things like that, and I was really trying hard to be good, high protein, exercise, and I was losing some weight very slowly. My stomach was the same essentially. Then I started a GLP-1 and I thought, I'll try it. I'll try anything at this point. And so I tried that and I lost weight. What I now know is I lost inflammation. I mean, it was like probably 50 or 60 pounds. So I lost this weight. I went in to see my nurse practitioner, and I've had some good doctors who I enjoyed. You know, you bounce around because of insurance, and then I didn't have insurance off and on a couple of times, and there's a million reasons, right? So I'd gone to this new nurse practitioner um, that my friend worked for, and I really enjoyed him. He took his time and did extra blood work, more blood work than I'd ever had. More, but he didn't have the tools to do like an internal ultrasound or anything like that. It was all out of pocket. He couldn't order like a CAT scan. My blood pressure just kept getting higher every time he would see me every few months. And he's like, "You've gotta lose weight or this blood pressure's gotta come down. I'm gonna prescribe you medicine." I didn't wanna be on medicine. He did it anyway. I said, "Fine, I'll do it." I had migraines, acne, my hair was falling out. Actually, I had a ton of gray hair, and now I have no gray hair hardly at all. Very crazy, but all sorts of symptoms that we didn't know were all related. So I, had been going back in for my blood work for my GLP-1 to check it and my blood pressure because it was very high. It was so high, one point he said, "I would like to call an ambulance." And I was so scared to be sick and to like make a fuss. It was my biggest issue. I was like embarrassed. And so I was like, no. I almost like I had a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack. Had a panic attack in his office, almost passed out. I was like, no. And he said, "I think you might have a tumor or something." And I was just completely freaked out. And because I'd been losing weight, but turns out when he did my measurements, my stomach had gotten bigger. So I was losing weight. You could see my chest bones, my collarbones. I was sunken in the cheeks and in the temples and in like my hands. It turns out I was actually malnourished. That's when I figured out like something was definitely not right. Like he's right, I'm right. I need to just admit to myself. During that time, life was happening. I lost my dream job. I had to get a new job. I had to move, all these things, right? And you just kind of put yourself to the back burner and you're like, oh, I don't want to be a fuss. I don't want to make a big deal. So I knew something wasn't right. And then about 2 months later, I got really sick. I had these like wounds on my abdomen. I thought I had shingles. It was not shingles. I was really sick. I couldn't even like swallow my own saliva. I had a fever of like 104. My mom was very worried about me, my sister, and my mom was here and she said, let's call an ambulance. And I said, okay. I was so sick, I couldn't even stand up out of the chair. The EMTs had to come in and get me and like take me to the ambulance. So that's when I went to the first hospital and they were doing all these tests and they were like, well, you have a tumor, we think. And I was like, no, I'm here because I'm sick. And I thought I had like a virus. And I was like, we just need some fluids and I'll be out in a jiff. And they were like, no,
No.
you're here for a while. So that's when the whole thing started.
Wow. That's crazy because I think not wanting to be a fuss thing, like, touches back to what we were talking about before of like the way that we raise young girls and women to not take up space and not be difficult and want to please everybody. And yeah, you don't want to make a fuss. You don't want to be a problem. It's like men are walking around like being problems on purpose. And like
Oh yeah.
we're
The
physically like
audacity.
right. And we have, you would a tumor just getting bigger by the moment.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be a fuss. It's like not only is it just like wrong from a moral standpoint to raise young girls that way, but it's very clearly can put their lives in danger. And it might sound dramatic out of context, but we can clearly see here in your story. And, there's a lot of other similar stories, like not, the same situation necessarily, but a lot of other similar stories of women being put in a lot of danger because of the medical neglect, the medical gaslighting, and then them being like, okay, well, maybe they're right. I don't want to be a problem. And instead of listening to their gut, they're taught to ignore it and just go about their lives. And it can cause so much damage. So, how old are you then when this is happening?
So this happened right around my 39th birthday
Okay.
last
So,
year.
very recently.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so the fact that you were going to doctors at 18 years old for all of these symptoms, and then you end up in the hospital, you know, 30 years later,
Yeah.
almost.
Isn't
Did I
that
just do math right? 20
I
years later.
mean, well, 20
20
years
years
later.
later.
Don't
I was like,
age
wait,
me.
30? I was like, no, not 30 years.
I'm not ready for 50 yet.
No.
Yeah, so I go to this hospital that's close by. And they're like, "You're here for this. We think you might have a tumor." And I said, "No, no, no. I'm sick. I have a virus or something." And I'm like texting my office. I'm like, "I'll be in probably in like a day or two." I just had to get some fluids. The doctors I met I just wish I could have met every single surgeon, specialist that I've come across. I wish I met them 20 years ago. I would have a different life, I think. I can't say one bad thing about who I've met, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but these aren't just like general practitioners. These are specialists, oncologists, surgeons. These are people who they just eat research and they love it and they want to know more and they just question you and love it. And I wish more people knew to seek a specialist, get a referral and a referral and a referral until you figure it out. I did not know that. I did not know you could get information from an oncologist, and an oncologist does way more than just cancer. There's a lot of information out there, and I wish more people knew to just keep seeking until you get the answer. You're not crazy. Your instincts are telling you to fight for your life, honestly, and it feels real dramatic or I felt really dramatic. And I'm a pretty like loud, dramatic person. And so for me to feel like grossly embarrassed and dramatic was saying something, I thought. So I go to this hospital. They're trying to diagnose me. They're trying to get fluids in me. I'm battling being septic. They're telling my family they don't know if I'll make it, honestly. They don't know what's wrong. They don't know what's going on, but it's causing whatever's wrong is causing all these other problems. I had fluid on my lungs. I had a heart something. I don't even remember. They thought I was having a stroke, all sorts of things. And so they go, they do this testing and ultrasounds and all these things, nothing internal yet at this point. And they are like, well, we think she has a tumor. We think it might be on her ovary, or it could be 10 other things. So they they don't have the capacity to handle this at this hospital. So they want to send me to the hospital, the regional hospital, which is downtown. At first, they wanted to send me to Vanderbilt in Nashville or another hospital in Birmingham, Alabama, which would have been devastating for me because my family is all here. So I'm very thankful that that path opened up to the hospital downtown. It's a very big hospital. The way things worked out was very awesome. So I thought I had shingles, and it turns out I had fluid from this tumor, and this fluid was trying to push its way out of my body, causing me to become almost septic, or I did become septic. And then also my skin was becoming necrotic. I had to have wound care. All it's a long story, but so I'm down at this hospital and it's a multi-specialty. I have wound care, a blood doctor, I've had nutritionist, oncologist, gynecologist. I'm having cardiologists come in, physical therapy, occupational therapy. I can't get out of the bed because of everything going on. I'm attached to um, this catheter they had to come in my room and do ultrasounds, and my type of tumor I had was big. It was 12 pounds. And that was after they drained it. So I really don't know like truly how big it was, but
Wow.
it was flat. So it started on my left ovary and it went all the way to my appendix. And so it kind of covered my uterus. I mean, I'm not a
God.
doctor, but that kind of
Right. Yeah.
way. So, so the way the tumor is, it's called a mucinous cystidenoma. And there's also mucinous carcinoma, and I think that's what turns into, like, ovarian cancer. I think I'm saying that right. So, I had this we didn't know what it was, but the type of tumor I have, it had so many pockets of fluid, and so all of this time, all of these 20 years or more of me gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight is really me gaining and losing and fighting this inflammation. The whole time, all this weight I have on me is fluid. It's not fat. It's just, I mean, I went down 2 shoe sizes, ring sizes, clothes sizes. I don't even know how many sizes I went down. And it was just fluid the whole time. They'd never seen this. My doctor's he's calling surgeons in other countries to figure out what this is, how to handle it. Once every, I think, 2 weeks, they would have a Zoom meeting with all the specialists on it, and they would try to figure out a new game plan for the next, like, week or 2 for me because they're trying to get me stronger. Because the whole time I thought I was losing weight from this GLP-1, I was really dying. Like, I was becoming malnourished, my bones were becoming softer in the hospital just by them, like, moving me around, which they were very gentle and great. I cracked 4 ribs, and so, like, I had to deal with that in the hospital and get an X-ray and, all of that, and so it's been a journey.
My
That's
God.
just a part of it.
Were you malnourished from the GLP-1 or was that like a separate thing?
No, what they've all come to believe is the GLP-1 just took away that, like, inflammation.
Okay.
They really think they really think that I was not eating much, and I thought oh, the GLP-1, like, makes you not wanna eat as much food, but it
Yeah.
really was the tumor was just pushing against my stomach and everything else and the fluid. So I had over 200 pounds of fluid just taken off me in the hospital through a catheter, and it took weeks to do because they couldn't do it too fast because then my blood pressure would drop and all that. I did not know that this this kind of stuff existed. I didn't know
Yeah.
about any of it. I didn't, and it's all related. After not having this tumor in me anymore and the fluid, I don't have acne anymore. I don't have migraines anymore at all. I don't have high blood pressure. I have perfect blood pressure. The last time I was in the hospital a month ago, my surgeon was like, "Your blood pressure is better than mine." And she's a runner and all this stuff. So I was like, what a treat to hear
Right.
something positive.
It's a first.
Yeah.
Wow. That well, I mean, I think a lot of people listening are gonna be like, "Yeah, I didn't know that this could happen either." But it's so we talked about how when you were younger, they didn't actually run any further testing or imaging or whatever. If they had, would they like, is there, or is it a reasonable conclusion to say that they would have seen something wrong, or would it not
Yeah.
have shown up?
I did have a CT scan at one point, and I did have, well, I've had 2 CT scans, I think, over the years, and it just showed up as little cysts. The reason for me was, which I should have pushed for more, to be like, "Okay, well, how do we get rid of the cysts? What do I need to do? What can we do to make them smaller?" Because I would hurt, sometimes. But my cyst, well, my tumor had all of these pockets of fluid all over my abdomen and probably other places, we don't know. And so it just looked like fluid, or I think it's called ascites. It didn't look like a mass. So when they even did the CT scan in the hospital, they were like, it's not lighting up. It's supposed to light up like a Christmas tree if there's cancer. So it was really throwing them off. My hematologist was convinced I had a blood disorder. My gynecologist oncologist was convinced I had a rare tumor. And then my cardiologist was concerned because my blood pressure kept going up and down. It was just this wild ride of lots of conversations. And then I'm on meds and I have to have people there to help me remember what we're talking about at all because I'm in and out. I just can't think about how I could have avoided all of this if I would have just been a little louder back in the day, 20
Mhm.
years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough for a teenager though to expect that from them, and it speaks to this much larger issue of like we shouldn't have to do that. Like I say all the time, like one of the main messages of this podcast is to teach women to advocate for themselves, to tell them that they can take up space. That doesn't change the fact though that we should not have to do that. Like these people who have been training for over a decade most of the time to
Yeah,
deal with these issues, like I don't know if there's enough humility honestly in the medical system, because I think when it comes to like your more general practitioners, like you were saying, like you have to push for a specialist. And I think when it comes to more general practitioners, a lot of them, for whatever reason, at least in my experience and a lot of women that I've spoken to in their experience, it is not a default to refer them to a specialist. Like, you really have to push, and I don't understand that. I don't understand if it's an ego thing, if they don't wanna be like, "I don't know, it's out of my, scope of practice," or if it's simply not what they're taught to do in med school. Like, I have no idea what that is all about, but I don't know why that's a problem to say,
I don't, yeah,
"Go to a specialist."
I don't either. I don't know if it's more paperwork. I don't know. I'd like to know as well. I still have a problem with my general practitioner that I have after my surgery that is affiliated with my hospital. I still have a problem getting her to refer me out. And I'm like, my story. I was patient of the year last year at my hospital because it was such a rare thing, all that. And I'm like, I hate to brag, but I was patient of the year, you know,
Yeah.
help me,
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. Cause then now I've got all these issues trying to balance my hormones. I'm considered postmenopausal now. So
Mhm.
that's a whole new cup of
Right.
tea to
Right.
figure out.
That's so true. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today about how like great it is that like my parents' generation, like Gen X, is very they're being very vocal about menopause in a way that previous generations haven't been. And obviously like medically induced menopause from hysterectomies and stuff, like that's a bit of a different story, but still at the same time, there's a lot more information now out there, which is great. Let's talk about now then, like you mentioned, you're considered postmenopause and you obviously still have checkups and doctor's appointments. And what is the like official like what's the plan now? Are you, I know it's like healed is like such a, there's not enough nuance there of like,
Yeah.
are you healed?
Yeah.
But like your life obviously is no longer in danger, at least at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Right.
talk to us about that, about the healing process.
It has been a journey. I was just telling my sister this weekend, I had surgery. I was in the hospital last year from March to May. I had surgery in April and I had surgery again this year because I had a hernia from where my incision was, and then they also found a lipoma on my liver. So then I had to go to a liver oncologist, all of that. I have another surgery, more CT scans, all of that. And so I was just telling my sister, I said, just now, it's been a year. I feel like myself again. It's healing is so, it's just up and down. And honestly, like, I'm a pretty tough person. Have never been very emotional. I gotten emotional as I've gotten older, but this whole journey has been very traumatic. Now I love going to the doctor. I have zero problem standing up for myself. I don't even ask for a referral. I tell them, I'm like, I would like a referral for this and let me know when who you pick or whatever, whatever the case would be. Mm, I'm polite. I love people and love talking to people, but I'm direct. Because my oncologist told me last year when he cleared me of his patient roster, he said, I don't get to do this, as often as I would like. And he said, you're young, you're healthy, and you need to go and live life. And so I felt like, I don't even know. I felt like the genie in Aladdin when he takes his cuffs off. I was like, what do I do? I mean, and because all I know is the hospital for 2 months, just like that's all I talked about with people. And I mean, I was at a wedding this weekend and people were like, how's your health? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm like really good. I did do a cancer genetics test, which my insurance told me they were not paying for, and they saw no reason. And I was
Uh,
like, well, considering my liver oncologist sent my lipoma to Mayo Clinic because he did not believe the pathology that was sent back. Yes, I need to know.
yeah.
I've had two rare tumors. Let's figure this out.
Right.
Um, but healing now, I just went to the doctor, my gynecologist. She specializes in menopause and she's incredible. But even then, I've had to tell her, like, I know I'm on estrogen, but I want to also be on progesterone. I wanted to balance it. And I had to tell her I wanted to be on it. And I wish she would have been like, oh, yeah, of course you want to be on both.
Yeah.
In the community, Well, I'm in a few like menopause Facebook groups and
Mhm.
hysterectomy Facebook groups. I didn't know. I didn't know that it was such a battle to get progesterone because a lot of old school doctors believe you don't need it if you don't have a uterus because it's protecting your uterus. Uh, Again, I'm not a doctor.
Well,
Definitely
I
seek
mean,
out everyone.
progesterone has a lot of benefits outside of the
Yes.
uterus, outside of fertility. It's shown to be neuroprotective. It has anxiolytic effects, and anxiety is a very big thing in menopause.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you
Yes.
keep going, but there is a lot. I mean, I'm not a doctor either, but that I have read a lot of
You're right
research on
though.
that. Yeah.
You're saying all the right things. That's exactly what I've read too. So I told her, I said, I think I should be on progesterone also. I was also gaining weight after I became like estrogen dominant after being, I mean, my body's just gone through it. It's
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, you
Yeah.
know? So, so now I'm trying to get back to where I was. Well, who knows where I was, but a healthy weight. I'm back in the gym. I am on a GLP-1 again. Um, but I'm on estrogen and progesterone. I gained a lot of weight just being on estrogen. And then I added progesterone and keep a spreadsheet of my weight and my blood pressure and all my labs because I'm very type A.
Mhm.
After last year, I was like, no one's taking me down. If someone has a problem, I'm going to say, here's all the lab works, like,
Yeah.
let's get this ball rolling. So anyway, I'm on that medicine, and as soon as I started taking progesterone, I didn't gain any weight at all, any more weight. So I feel really good. Then I learned about testosterone. My nurse practitioner that told me he thought I had a tumor, he retired, but he keeps in touch. And he told me, he's like, you need to be on testosterone. And I was like, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Why would I know? And so I asked her about it, and she's told me that she has a hard time getting insurance to approve it for women, or it's rare, and I know that. I know. And if I want insurance to approve it, it needs to be for my libido. And it just makes me so mad. I know. It makes me so mad, and I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is brain fog. The problem is I'm teaching a real estate class for work, and I can't think of words, and I've been doing real estate for 13 years, and I know these words. And I'm looking at people, and I can't think of, like, what I'm trying to say, and I'm 40 years old. Like, that's crazy. And so the brain fog is real, and it's a wild ride. So she put me on, like, testosterone gel, like, compounded. I paid for it out of pocket, and she's like, "You need to be on it." And we had a conversation. My testosterone labs came back in the normal range. Everyone loves that.
Yeah.
Their labs are normal,
Right. Right.
but it was low, but I knew. I didn't care. I did not care what my lab said. I said, "My brain fog is back. I need to be on testosterone." And she said, "No problem. It's at the pharmacy today." And I went and got it. And so I went and saw her last week. And I've been to the doctor 48 times this year. Um, Hopefully not as many, fingers crossed, next year. But she told me, she said, "You're so healthy. Everything is balanced right now. Like, let's just hope for the best." And she said, case is definitely unique. Like, I am in the textbooks at our school here for my tumor and my cancer last year and all that they found. And then also for postmenopausal, like you said, surgical hysterectomy is just kind of a little bit different. So she actually sometimes will bring other gynecologists in or students, and they wanted to ask questions and talk to me about things. And I explained, brain fog, all the menopausal things, vaginal dryness, things you don't, I didn't realize what happened. And they but they said, they're like, "Your labs are great. I feel great." And that's the biggest thing is feeling, I can tell now. I really know like when something's not right. So I'm really thankful. I'm feeling like $1,000,000. I have my energy's through the roof and I'm back to exercising. I can lift weights again. And I'm like, I got my first DEXA scan. like,
Nice.
I'm like, menopause is not taking me down. Okay. Yeah.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
am so glad to hear that you are doing so well after, such a crazy, wild ride.
Yeah.
And I love how you brought up about the like medical students and stuff coming in because I was going to ask you if a medical student or a new doctor is listening to this episode, what do you hope that they would take away from your story?
Wow. What a good question. You know, um, all of the medical students I've met along the way, and I know some personally, just in life, and they have been so interested, and they are interested in kind of what my life or like background is, kind of like how was I raised? What was I around? Cigarette smoke, alcohol, do I drink? These kind of questions that are more standard. They're so interested. They ask me a lot of questions. They want to know, do you eat Pop Tarts? Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, don't stop doing that. There's so, there's so much information out there. And I think some people in every profession get, get stale, they get bored. And that's not good for medical. So, I've really enjoyed all of my medical students that I've come across. Um, I think it's really important to don't stop asking questions and push when everyone has gut instincts. And as someone in the medical field, like you're no different. Like you have an instinct about a patient. And I've seen it with my own eyes with, nurses and different staff all the way up to the doctors and surgeons. And um, I've appreciated when they've pushed for me, and advocated for me. I would just, I understand there's like, you can't go above your seniority and all of that. But the medical students have really advocated for me several times. And I would say, going forward, don't stop learning and don't stop asking questions.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it goes back to like what I said before, if there not being enough humility in the medical profession, hopefully with the younger generations, we can, actually bring some of that humility back in and begin asking questions again, believing
Mhm.
the patient. So I love that. I'm so glad to hear that they're so like inquisitive and
Yeah,
interested in not just the the basic stuff, the standard things, but they want to know more about like you as a person,
hmm
and your lifestyle and all of that, which I think is a great approach. And definitely, like you said, like, you understand like a medical student can't go above the seniority of a doctor, obviously, but at the same time, as a patient, having somebody in the system on your side is like automatically a validating experience. And it can go such a long way. To just be like, "Hey, I
totally
believe
agree.
you." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Well, Jenna, we are wrapping up here, but this has been such an incredible episode. I think that there are a lot of listeners who are going to get so much out of this episode because despite your situation being so rare and unique, I think that the themes throughout that a lot of women face in the medical system are quite common. And I think that your story and your situation can be really validating for a lot of people, especially because you've come out on the other side. Like you said, like you're feeling great, your energy's through the roof, and that's like so beautiful and so amazing. And I think that's definitely can provide a lot of hope for a lot of people, perhaps women listening who are like, something's wrong and I don't know what, and no one's listening to me, like, keep pushing, advocate for yourself, and there is hope on the other side. Do you have any last words or messages for the women listening?
I would say trust yourself. Don't be embarrassed. That is, don't be embarrassed. So many times in the hospital, I went through things that are embarrassing. Life, bodily functions, you get the gist. And the people I met and encountered, I'm still friends with several of them to this day. And when I tell you they were happy to do anything I needed, that I found to be, as someone who's not in the medical profession, I found it to be disgusting. They were happy to do it. They treated me like I was their little sister they're taking care of, their mom, their grandma, whatever. So now when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, that's so embarrassing, cringe, whatever," I'm like, "It is just your butt. Who cares?" Or it is
We all have one.
whatever. Yeah, it's a nipple. Everyone's seen one. I don't care. I just really, I especially do that with like my nieces and my nephew. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. Don't be embarrassed. And I really wish I could go back when I was 18 and someone would tell me, just don't be embarrassed. Go in there, talk about anything you want. It doesn't matter. That is the number one thing. Trust yourself. Don't be embarrassed and really pay attention to your body. Know yourself and you will be happier to address something that you're feeling scared of, off about. If you address it quicker, then later, you can have a lot of unnecessary drama, you know, and trauma. And so get ahead of it. And also, like, don't stick with a doctor you have, a nurse practitioner, a physical therapist. I don't care who it is. Just because it's your mom's friend's daughter and you've been going to her, whoever, I don't care. If they are not treating you how you need to be treated, you can be polite, but you can say, seeing someone else, I want a referral, whatever the case may be. Your life is important and your life is worth it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I love that message. Like, you can fire your doctor. They work for you at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah.
They're making a lot of money and
Yeah. Yeah.
they work for you.
Yeah. It's a conversation. It's not
Yes.
one sided.
Right. Yeah, the power dynamics in a doctor's office for women in particular is
Hmm.
something that needs to be addressed. But I love that message. I love the message that you're putting out there and that you're so open about sharing your story. It really is amazing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on. That was great. I love your
Yes.
podcast.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. For everyone listening, I will link Jenna's TikTok below, and the article if you want to read about.
Yeah.
I forget where it was published, but I have the
It's
link.
on the regional one Memphis website.
Okay, perfect.
But I'll
I'll
send you the
put
link.
that in the show notes for you guys. Thank you all for listening. As always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions, comments, suggestions. Again, if you are interested in sharing your story, there is a link to that form in the show notes. Thank you guys so much, and class dismissed.